Hello and good morning. Welcome back to another episode of the Forest Lake Morning Show. I'm your co-host Tyler Cohen.
I'm Brendan.
And we have a great episode for you today on the topic of film scoring, film composition. I think that's the same thing. I'm not sure, but everything related to it, because it's maybe something we don't necessarily think about when we watch movies, but it is something that impacts how we experience a movie.
Huge. It's
Heavily.
huge.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of cool because normally we're more like music production and
you wouldn't think
like touring music, kind of that side of things, right. But movies. We're going to talk
composition.
Music in movies, yeah. And it really does. It makes a huge difference. And I think people don't know it because it's kind of in the background there.
Mm-hmm.
But so there was a really good video that I saw, and it was like the importance of a good score, right? And a score is just like the music of a movie,
right?
And it took a clip from Pirates of the Caribbean,
mm-hmm.
and it played the same clip over like four or five times. Each one had a different score to it, like a drastically different score, and it was insane. Like they would all fit, but the overall feel of that scene was wildly different.
So they were testing the 4 different versions, is what you're saying. Like they had 4 different versions, and it gave you a different feeling with each one, is what you're...
Yeah. And
is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and each one would fit, but you'd have one which would be like the original score, which is like that
all right.
Pirates of the Caribbean theme song. And then they'd have like a Disney soundtrack behind it. And like it still fits, but it's just, it's completely, it throws you off.
Yeah. So that's so interesting. And we'll get a little bit more into that when we start talking about, or at least referencing some of the top film scores that we think are out there right now that are just very impactful. But when you think about just this conversation alone, it's a hefty one. And we're not going to cover all the information because, it does go all the way back to the earliest forms of film scoring, or silent films, like
silent
even films when films began. So the idea of making sound for a movie stems from Thomas Edison in 1857 with phonography, which is basically just record and play back. From there, a bunch of people, scientists and other inventors, they kept, enhancing it and playing with it, toying with it.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Now, and then obviously around that era, you had the silent film era. Now, most people think of silent film era as probably like the Charlie Chaplin movies and stuff like that, but you don't think there was actually music. What the intended idea for silent films was, because it just wasn't feasible to have sound yet in the film, or wasn't popular with the technology, was that it was left up to the individual theaters to provide that music live.
Oh, really? So each one had different music to it?
So if they could, or...
Oh, it was live.
Yeah,
okay.
So if you were to go see a film, you would have accompanied composition for it from perhaps the film makers. But it was up to the theater to provide a pianist or like an orchestra or a real band.
Dang.
To perform
How cool
along
would
with
that
that movie.
be?
Yeah.
You go to watch a movie and you have like an actual band just kind of down there.
And when I read that, I was like, wow, I didn't even know that. I just think of silent films, and I'm like, okay, people just show up to this movie theater and sit in silence and watch this stuff.
Yeah. They should have that nowadays.
It would be cool.
That'd be
Imagine
awesome.
going to see, which we'll talk about here in a bit more, Interstellar, and they have a full ass orchestra.
See, I don't know if I would like that though, because Interstellar is so like hugely produced, and
It'd probably be impossible.
Yeah.
Well, it wouldn't be impossible, but it'd be a big thing in the ticket
Well,
prices.
okay, so let's talk Interstellar.
What about it? You want to go right into it?
We're diving right in.
There's still so much more to say, but yeah, let's go.
Yeah,
right
well,
into
I feel like Interstellar was scored by Hans Zimmer. Hans Zimmer is, I think, one of the greatest film scores of all time. He does a lot of the Christopher Nolan stuff, like the big films, like The Dark Knight, Interstellar, like the huge dramatic movies.
He also assisted on the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yep.
He wasn't. Yeah. There was a female who actually did that, but he assisted.
But you were saying like with the silent films, like each theater would have their own band or orchestra playing, and like trying to mimic Interstellar would just be impossible. So there's like that score is so crazy. There's like documentaries of just making how they made that score, and I guess it took him over 2 years to make it. And he was doing it like in his home studio, a couple other studios, and then I know like some of the main scenes and the main sounds that make up Interstellar came from London's Temple Church.
Okay.
And they have this huge organ. It's massive. Like you have like churches have really tall ceilings.
Yeah.
And so they have this organ, and the pipes go all the way up, like the entire wall. It's massive. And there's the dude that plays it. You have to be like so trained to play this thing because it's like a Neil Peart style, pedal board and pianos, like knobs and everything. It's insane. It looks like an alien spaceship. So you have to be very talented to play this thing. So they had a dude, I think his name was Roger, and Roger played it, and it just breathes. Like you can hear it suck air. It's insane. Like it fills the room.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking, like, man, if they try to mimic that at a local theater,
it probably wouldn't be as effective, I would think, because it would just be so hard and you can't get that kind of sound. But maybe still you provide a live aspect, it would be sweet. Now, Hans Zimmer, he's, to me, probably the top two. You have Hans Zimmer and you have John Williams. As far as historically what they've done, right? Because Hans Zimmer also did Lion King, which is our childhood for more or less for any Disney lover. But then you got John Williams with Jaws in 75. You got John Williams with did he do Star Wars? He did Indiana Jones, which is huge.
I don't know who did Star Wars.
Yeah, he might have. Either way, John Williams has an incredible film score history.
It's kind of cool though. Like the music makes the movie memorable.
He did E.T. Sorry, that just came to mind. He did do E.T., which was a big deal.
Okay.
That ending scene when E.T. flies away and they have if you listen to that and you watch the cinematic part of what he scored as E.T. like flies in the ship and the people are all just looking up. It's a hard you feel that shit. Sorry to interrupt you. What were you saying?
No, it's like you hear music without seeing the movie and you're like, oh, that's Jaws. Like Star Wars. Everyone knows the music from these movies and they connect the two. And it becomes like the movie's theme.
Right.
Like it makes it iconic.
It's cooler when you have these films have like original scores like that, not just using real songs like a lot of current movies do, where they'll just take.
Yeah, that's kind of like the other side of it now is like sync licensing.
Right.
Like which artists getting their own songs on movies.
Some of those songs work perfectly too. Like when I'm sure like we talked about on the episode last time, Iron Man in the movie Iron Man. Mm-hmm. It's just cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, you kind of have to at that point. Like,
right. Sometimes it's very fitting, and sometimes it does work well with the movie. But when you talk about historically and the impact of people putting 2 years into a music score for Interstellar to make that movie come alive, which is why Interstellar's so good. I don't know. I mean, that movie made me cry almost 3 times.
Here's the coolest part, I think, about that score. Besides, like him filming it or recording it at that church in London. Yeah. There's a water scene, right, where they go to this other planet and it's like all desolate. It's just water. Oh yeah. And they see these huge like mountains in the background, which turn out to be massive waves that wrecked the previous travelers on it. So the music, there's a tick. It's like a clock. It ticks. But for every tick, it's 1 day back on Earth, because you have the whole like time relativity thing where like I think 7 years on that planet, or 1 hour on that planet is 7 years back on Earth or something.
Yeah, I saw something about that.
So they represented that in the form of music, where every tick is a day back on Earth.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It is super cool.
That's crazy.
That's Hans Zimmer, baby. Well, maybe that was just the director who thought of that idea and then he made it happen. But these music scores are insane. Like the movie wouldn't be anything without them. Yeah. And it's almost interesting to think, like, imagine being the person in charge, right? Obviously, Hans Zimmer, John Williams, they're good at what they do, but they're given what I assume is just raw footage. And they're like, you need to write to this. And this is what they come up with. And you're like, holy crap.
Yeah. I think so. I don't want to talk about Interstellar all day, but we could. But
it's a great
I know the most about that, I guess. Yeah. But Christopher Nolan came to Hans Zimmer and I think he said, like, hey, this movie is about like a father and his son and their relationship or something like that. And that's all he said. Really? Not even that it's like a daughter and her father, but just father-son relationship. That's all it is. And that's how he came up with that main theme. Really? And then he realized, without the footage, it's a space movie. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. That's all he was kind of given to start initially. Interesting.
Well, I mean, if you're going to Hans Zimmer, the dude get gets paid probably a couple million a freaking thing.
Yeah, I think he's in the ballpark of like 2 million.
Yeah, you can trust that guy to make something good for your movie.
2 million a movie. I wonder, is that why they do sync licensing now? Because it's cheaper. You're not paying $2 million a movie.
Probably.
And waiting 2 years.
Probably. Unless you know unless you have the budget like Christopher Nolan could probably have, because he's he's directing a really good film, or you just know this movie's going to be insane. I would have hoped that they had the idea of Interstellar and thought, yeah, this is going to be good.
Another cool thing, like when you're having someone score, you're not just doing sync licensing.
Right.
You're having someone make the music for every second of your movie.
Yeah.
They're professionals, right? So they know how to build up certain parts of the song. They know how to have the viewers get chills, for example. They know, like, okay, I'm going to use this synth and make it, vibrato on it. And, I'm going to build it up and stack all these layers onto it. They know how to create that movement in the music that's going to make your viewers go, oh man, I just got chills.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Now, speaking of chills, on that same conversation, we have two notable mentions, just because it's not something we're really going to go into depth with our conversation here. But as far as film scoring goes for horror movies, it's huge, right? Like, we think of scary movies. They're not scary without cinematic music, because that's what mostly is what scares you.
You ever watch a horror movie without the music?
No, and I don't know why I would. So I know they have...
I'm curious now. I'm curious now.
Is it even a scary movie at that point? I don't know. But there are two notable mentions, and that's going to be John Carpenter with the Halloween series, who, by the way, also wrote and directed that movie. He wasn't just he didn't just compose.
And he did all the music?
Yeah.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Wow.
So shout out to that guy, because that's pretty impressive. The other one is going to be for Psycho, Bernard Herrmann, just because that's a classic. Everybody talks about Psycho, and then you get the classic shower scene where I think her name's Janet. She gets killed, but it's a really good film.
Spoiler.
Yeah, sorry if you haven't seen Psycho from like 1960s, whatever. It's good. By the way, I found out also, because I was reading up on this, that in the Scream movie, the original ones, the director, they have the whole phone call series where he calls the girl in the house, the people in the house, to mess with them. The guy who does that voice on the phone as Scream is Ray or L. Jackson or something, or Roger L. Jackson. The director, he hid the guy on set. Okay, so like to get it as authentic as possible for those actors and actresses, he hid the guy on set and made him make the phone calls, and then they put his voice through the voice changer to sound weird, and it was real time. He was doing that, and those actors and actresses had no idea in those scenes to make it more authentic. When I read that, I was like, damn, that's pretty cool.
Wait, they had no idea what?
That was a real person on the other line, and it was basically...
Oh, they thought it was like pre-recorded or something?
Yeah.
Or that's what they were expecting?
I don't know if they thought it was pre-recorded, but yeah, to make it real, they put Roger L. Jackson on the set. They hid him somewhere because that's what he's doing in the movie. Scream's hiding in the house, calling the person playing these games. But they actually mimic that, and I read that.
That's pretty cool.
That was kind of cool. Now, backing it up a little bit more, right? Because we're talking about the history of film scoring, and we talk about there's so much history going from the silent era to where we are present day, and even where it's going to be in the future. There's two things to note here. There's only two types of film scoring. That's going to be your underscoring and your what I think is pronounced diegetic, but it could be diegetic.
What are these?
Your underscoring is the basic background music, and your diegetic music is it's music that's made for an action. So
diegetic?
Diegetic. So I thought diegetic.
Okay.
But I also say GIF.
All right, wait, so
and not GIF.
That's what again?
So that's specifically for an action. So if you're talking like a fighting scene and you know that music is accompanying the swings or the hits or stuff like that, like for that action. That's what that is. Your underscoring is your basic background music. So if you listen, probably like you saw Top Gun and you see One Republic's I Ain't Worried playing as they're playing volleyball or whatever you said it was. That's probably that's the underscoring.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So then that would kind of comprise like the soundtrack. Like if you were to go buy the soundtrack of a movie or something, that would be the diegetics. I
would think so, yeah. Like what you can see
the iconic scenes that you're listening, like the Star Wars theme or something like that.
Yeah, that's your diegetics. Now, I'm just saying that to say that because I thought that was cool to know. I didn't know that. But a few other things to note that are just interesting are like, well, what was the first film with sound? So notably across the internet, it is The Jazz Singer in 1927. Now, The Jazz Singer, it was really just the first film with predominantly synchronized sound, because before that there were some things with clippets, or not clippets, but like snippets of sound. Okay, but to have like an actually synchronized soundtrack, as well as like the actual audio of the person's voice, it's notably given to The Jazz Singer. Now, fast forward a couple of years, because that was in 27. In 1933, they came out with King Kong. Now, King Kong was like the full thematic score ever. The first full thematic score.
That was in 33?
Yeah. Prior to that, everything was just merely incidental with sound. Even The Jazz Singer, even though it was like, predominantly synchronized. But
that's pretty interesting.
It is. And the guy that composed that, Max Steiner, he's the guy who went on to compose Casablanca and Gone with the Wind.
He was the original Hans Zimmer.
He was like the OG Hans Zimmer, yeah. And he had like 20 Oscar nominations for it. He only won 3. But notable. I mean, the guys, you think of those movies.
You ever see the guys nowadays? It's not necessarily like the music, but more so like the sound effects of movies.
Yes, I was hoping we would bring that up, where you see on and
they're like,
see this girl just like, or somebody just like screeching a chair, and she's like, "Oh, I'm a movie sound effects engineer."
Yeah, but it's like the weirdest things. Like
the weirdest thing.
Like someone will be like cutting in the movie, like cutting a carrot or something, and in the back they're like just doing this. Yeah. Or something like it's the weirdest things. It makes no sense, but they're genius.
But it is cool.
Yeah, they're really good at it.
It is really, really cool.
How cool would that be if that's your job?
You just freaking
you're just
sitting in your house making these weird sounds.
Yeah,
punching a thing of raw meat. Yeah, to make a punch sound. That's what I mean. Dude, you can't ask for anything better than that. It is cool to. I remember when I first saw that, I was like, "This is how they do that." I think one of the ones I saw was like something with playing pool and the sounds of that, and they used that. They were like actually clicking the pool balls to make a sound for something else, and I was like, "Yeah, oh my god!" And then they show you the actual audio, and I'm like, "Holy sh!"
Yeah, I feel insane. Like once you know that that's going on behind the scenes, you can't really unsee it. Yeah, like you watch a movie nowadays and you hear something, and it's like so pronounced that like the actual mics when they were filming it wouldn't have picked that up. You're like, I see what you did there.
Yeah, it is a big industry. This just alone, this film scoring, the music, the audio engineering, because then you can have voiceovers for stuff for film and
you know what drives me nuts? Absolutely nuts is when you have
a voiceover.
No, so it's when like they're singing. This happens more in like shows, I guess, but
TV shows?
Yeah, like when the actor starts singing a song,
okay, and
instantly it changes from like the mic that's picking them up on the set to a full-blown produced, mixed, and mastered and auto-tuned, hard-tuned like song. And they just put it over top, and like their vocals aren't even lined up. I'm like, what is
so probably
this?
like Glee or something?
Like all of them. It just drives me nuts. Like there's reverb. It's perfectly EQ'd.
Dang, you know what's funny now that you say that? We're talking top film scores. We're not even talking like top musicals. Like movies that are musicals. We're talking Greatest Showman.
I'm not a fan of musicals.
I hate them. I do too. But I will respect them because they are something that people love. And I will say, there are 2 that I loved. I watched this Johnny Depp. He's a barber.
Oh yeah.
Todd Sweeney.
Yeah.
Sweeney Todd.
That's it.
Todd Sweeney.
Just dyslexic.
Sweeney Todd is such a cool freaking what do we call those musicals?
Yeah, it's a musical.
I hate musicals. They just ruin a movie for me. It's like I don't want to listen to you sing, dude. But
I know
Sweeney Todd is a great one, and the visual effects of it are great. It's obviously Johnny Depp. Dude's good at anything. And then the other one is I saw The Greatest Showman, which, dude, it's fucking good.
I haven't seen that one.
If you haven't seen it, it's Lady Gaga and
Bradley Cooper, is that it?
No. It's the other dude. It's not Bradley Cooper. It's the guy who does Wolverine.
Really?
What's his name?
I don't know his name. Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman.
Is that it? Yeah.
Hugh Jackman. Yeah, it's them 2.
What?
Bradley Cooper, he does a musical. He might do a musical. It's with somebody else, I think, though.
I thought.
Then there's another.
I thought musical. He did one with Lady Gaga. Or maybe it was just a song or something.
I think you're right, but I think it's from something else. No, The Greatest Showman's Hugh Jackman and Lady Gaga. It's fucking good. It's so good. If you haven't seen it, please go watch it. I hate musicals and I love that. Yeah, and that's just me saying those two. There's a whole bunch of them out there. There's ones so that people are probably maybe you're watching and you're thinking of them.
I think like nowadays too, like on the animation side, like Disney versus Pixar. I'll take Pixar any day because Pixar doesn't sing.
So are you would those be considered musicals that are the animated ones as well? Because those are all
I think partly.
Frozen.
Yeah, like all the Disney movies, like there's like a 70% chance they'll break out in song.
Yeah,
I can't stand it. But Pixar, they won't do it.
What's Poco Loco? That might be the song, but what's it? Coco?
Coco. Oh, I guess that is a Pixar one.
That's a Pixar musical.
Oh,
go watch Coco. It's great, and that's kind of Halloween themed. Coming up here now that we're talking about scary movies and films and Halloween, but yeah, that's just to start. I mean, these Disney Pixar movies with these animated musicals it's a whole other category. So I mean, we have, like I said, there's so much to talk about that you can just talk about it all day. So we're trying to talk about everything a little bit here, but I mean, yeah. Pixar on that conversation, Pixar over Disney for sure. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Like the music in like Pixar or Disney movies, they all fit into like one theme. I think like if you were to hear a soundtrack and you could be like, oh, that's got to be a Disney movie or a Pixar movie. You know,
we'll see. I feel like Disney does better on the music. If you're going to talk music, Disney over Pixar. But if you're
think so?
Yeah, but if you're talking about what movies do I want to watch, I want to watch Pixar movies over Disney. Disney's killing it. They got a whole team doing all that stuff, writing these movies.
Yeah,
Moana's Disney, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they sing. They sing the entire movie.
Pixar's not a big singer.
No. Pixar has a really cool history.
Well, let's not talk. Yeah, this is a Forest Lake morning show. We're not getting into the. Were you about to bring up the Pixar Theory? Is that what I thought you were about to bring up?
What's that?
The Pixar Theory?
Yeah.
The whole conspiracy of how all the movies are more or less interconnected, and you can see.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
If you go on YouTube.
How do you connect WALL-E to anything?
Dude, you say that, but if you go on YouTube, there's people who have. There's actually, what's weird is some of these movies, even movies that have come out before the later ones, have like little things from other movies that are hidden in there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Pixar does that.
I think like...
Or they'll like foreshadow an upcoming movie or something.
It's actually,
it'll be like a poster on the wall and they'll like flash by it real quick.
So it's just a bunch of nerds over there at the Pixar office just like, how can we troll all these people?
Yeah, that makes them great.
Maybe one day they're going to come out and say, this is...
We should start doing that with our music. You know, like if our upcoming single has like horns in it or something, we have an acoustic song, we just pop a horn in there real quick or something.
Kind of on that note, I thought of like if we took a part of one song and then just started a whole new song with that and see if anyone would know or see what we could do creativity wise. Like let's take the course of So I'll Wait, for example, and then just...
I think we would get sued.
We'd get sued by ourselves. Forest Lake suing themselves in a class action lawsuit.
Yeah.
Well, we don't need to digress any further than that, but I think that about sums it up for the day with everything on the topic of films, mentioning a lot of the top film scores, the history a little bit, and just our thoughts on everything in between. So
yeah. Go watch your movies and listen to the music. Listen to the films. Interstellar. Go watch that.
Please go watch Interstellar. Here's a side note. I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it because it's related to coconut chapstick. The lady that coconut chapstick is about told me to watch Interstellar, and I never ended up watching it with her. And I remember we watched it for the first time. And dude.
Blew your mind.
Yeah, and she's like, yeah, you're going to probably cry like twice. And I was like, no, I'm not. I don't cry. I watched that movie. Cry. I choked up 3 times.
Yeah.
I wanted to cry so bad.
It's unreal.
The scene where I'm going to spoiler alert here, where Matthew McConaughey, I don't know his name in the movie, is in the spaceship getting the transmission from his son as he's growing up because time is relative, and he's watching his time. Like they're sending this message.
Well, yeah, that's when they were on that water planet and they were gone for how many years,
and it's only one way, so he can't send messages back. Yeah. So he has to watch his kid grow up and send these messages, and then they send the final one. He's like gives up hope. And you see Matthew McConaughey cry. I'm gonna cry right now, dude. Just thinking about it. It was so sad.
It's a great movie, man.
What's the first scene when you hear it's the chase in the beginning of it, the classic Interstellar music, the
Yeah. Yep.
When they're like chasing
the drone.
and you hear them. God, it's so good.
Go watch it.
All right. I've said enough. I've said too much. Thank you all for joining us today on this episode of the Forest Lake Morning Show, talking about everything film related. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, comment below or reach out to us. We'll get back to you. Other than that,
we'll see you next week.
See you next week.